So good morning or good night, depending on where you are, and welcome to another interview of The Shield on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector, and tonight I'm talking to a new band that has an album that's coming out on the 20th of January. They're called Tribunal. So I have the two members of the band here with me, and we're going to talk about the debut album that's coming out soon. So first of all, how's everything in Vancouver, guys?
It's good. Very dark out right now, so it feels like a lot later than it is, but
feels like the appropriate time to drop a dark and stormy doom record.
exactly.
Yeah, I live in the Caribbean, so
Yeah.
it's not the we have doom metal here, but it's not like the best scenery to play that type of doom. But Vancouver, I'm pretty sure it gets really gloomy, especially in this time of year.
Yeah, we got a lot of fog and rain and misty mountains, so it's a good ambiance, definitely.
Nice. So you guys introduce yourself and tell the people what you do in the band.
Sure. So I'm Soren Mourne, and I play cello and do the clean vocals as well as play bass in Tribunal.
And I'm Etienne, and I play guitar and I do our harsh vocals.
Nice. So yeah, no, I love the cello on the tracks, and I don't know if many doom metal bands use the cello, but the cello is like a very beautiful instrument, and it, to me at least, listening to the tracks on the debut album, I think they add a lot of like atmosphere to doom metal.
Yeah, I agree. I love the cello, and I've always thought it's one of the more sorrowful and emotive stringed instruments. So I feel like it's a good fit for doom, and I was really pleased to be able to bring it into the project.
Yeah, it's something different, and that will make the band stand out. So how did Tribunal form?
Basically, we both met right around the time we moved to Vancouver. And I think we were friends for about a year just because we both loved a lot of the same music. And we started to have conversations about wanting to get back into playing music. And I think it sort of, you brought in the idea of doing some doom metal. You brought in originally the riffs that would become Initiation, which is the opener off of our record. And we just sort of worked on those together. And it grew from just a little idea, something we were doing for fun, to something that we started to become very engaged in, and the people around us started to become engaged in.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we set out certainly to become a more serious band, and it was the main goal for me at least was just to have a creative outlet, be able to play live, which I really enjoy doing, and but it's been great for it to kind of develop naturally into a more serious project.
Nice. So how did you get into the cello?
I've played the cello since I was 5, so it's been quite a while. My mom plays the cello, and I have an aunt who plays the cello. So I've got a lot of cellists in the family. And yeah, my mom would play when I was younger, and I always just really loved the sound of it. So yeah, I've been playing since I was really young. And I've always wanted to bring cello into like a metal type musical project, and I've never really had the chance to do that in something that really stuck. But yeah, it was an idea that we had been kind of throwing around, and when we brought it in, it ended up being quite a natural fit. So yeah, we've been trying to write in a way that very intentionally incorporates the cello and centers that kind of different sound that it's able to bring.
It is like quite a challenge because it is, compared to a violin that you might associate with a band like My Dying Bride. It's much lower. It tends to move into a lot of the same registers that your electric guitars or your bass fit in. So we have to spend, I mean, maybe not the bass so much, because since you play bass and cello at the same time, you can only have one or the other live. But it's something you really have to think about when you're composing and arranging, rather than just throwing it in there.
Yeah, things can get very muddy very quickly with adding in some of those lower rich kind of ends of the cello. So if we want to feature those, we have to be really intentional about it and kind of cut other things away in order to feature that lower end. But what's been great is that I recorded on an electric cello that it's just the fingerboard just continues all the way down to the bottom without the body, so it's much easier to reach the very high positions. So I'm playing very, very high in a lot of the parts there, and that would be very challenging on a regular acoustic cello, but it's been fun to be able to explore the electric cello to get up into some of those higher ranges to cut through kind of the heaviness of the rest of the mix.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's interesting. So I'm gonna show the cover of the album here. So here we have the cover of the upcoming album. Uh, who worked on the album cover, and what did you want it to convey? And
So I painted the album cover, and yeah, it was. We had a few different concepts that we had sketched out, and this one was the simplest, and it just felt the most natural for the kind of ambiance we were going for. I was inspired by these Dutch vanitas type paintings, which are still lives that feature kind of a memento mori type message. They have a lot of symbols about the passage of time and mortality and like fleeting earthly pleasures. So I thought that some of that, those ideas, this kind of feeling of somber reflection, but not in a hopeless way, kind of resonated with a lot of the messages in the album. So I thought it created a nice it created that kind of mood. We've also always wanted to go for kind of a timeless vibe with our music and not have it being explicitly situated in a modern setting or specifically being kind of like a period piece type thing. So we thought that this kind of still life with these different artifacts could be in now, or it could be 300 years ago. So yeah, I don't know, how does the album cover make you feel?
I think it really does feel like us, and it was a great way to introduce a bunch of our visual motifs that we use through a lot of our symbolism, whether it's the scales, the candle. Of course, you've got the bow to represent the cello. So I think it made a lot of sense as an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I quite enjoyed when we spent some time together while you were painting it, going back and forth over choosing different objects and what we thought represented the band and the songs on the record and the ambiance we wanted to create.
And I should say that the border and the text on there saying the Weight of Remembrance was done by Karma Zed. So that was not done by myself, but yeah, he's been a big supporter of our band since very early on. He's also a big enthusiast of this kind of doom. So it was a pleasure to have him add those other elements, which I think really ties it together and makes it feel like a cohesive piece. So yeah,
no,
I've got
yeah, it's a great artwork. Yeah, I would put it. Yeah, it looks like something that you would see in a museum. So you paint, you play the cello, you sing. Is there something you can't do?
You really are the talented one.
No.
I feel like.
No, it's just a lot of different things. I'm not very good at social media. This is a weakness of mine. So
well, yeah.
We're very glad that we are on a label. There are people who are much better at that than us on there.
Oh yeah, there's there's a lot of bands, but there's sometimes you lose like the mystery. Like they're like, oh, we're recording one track. Oh, and it's like you kind of like lose the mystery. Plus, the music that you guys play sounds like retro style. Like it has some retro with a modern feel. But I and with cello, I think that works for the ambience. So in this album, what are like the main themes that you guys cover in it?
Yeah, for this one, this record wasn't necessarily composed deliberately as a set of songs to fit together, but rather sort of the representation of the start of the band and the dawn of the project. And so I think there are consistent themes, but they more arise through the fact that they were all songs that we wrote at the same time in our lives, going through some similar experiences. I would say that certainly you see in the title, I think some of it, particularly the music that I wrote, a lot of it's about sort of looking back and regrets and changes over time and uncertainties into the future, and sort of the melancholy of longing for the way things used to be, or the way the way you nostalgically imagine that they used to be.
Yeah, and I think that those themes do, resonate with me as well. But I think the songs that I wrote lyrically focus a bit more still on the sense of self, and how different forces affect your sense of self and how that changes over time. But thinking a bit more presently about kind of how different forces of where you are in your life, and the kind of settings you're in and institutions that you're dealing with can change your sense of self, and the kind of challenges of reflecting back on that.
I think it's a very inward facing record. And I think a lot of the music that we're working on for the future, I think, will be more outward facing. And that will be a dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think it's important to look inward, and it's really a music that sucks you in with the atmosphere of it, and I did get the melancholy feel out of the songs. What for you guys was the hardest song to write, lyrically or musically, in this album?
My go-to would probably be Without Answer.
Yeah.
That was the second song we wrote for the record. That was the first one that I had started bringing in riffs to compose. And it definitely took the longest. We repeatedly threw out sections of riffs and created new ones throughout the bridge. At one point, like relatively late in the process, I threw out all the lyrics except for one and rewrote the whole thing from scratch. I think I had written lyrics that were gesturing towards a concept, but in a not very clear way. And I think the concept had become clearer to me, and I circled back around to it, and I rewrote all the melodies on that song. Yeah,
that was one that I remember us wrestling with for a long time. It was kind of an awkward song when we would practice it. That was always the one that we would always have the hardest time getting through it correctly, because there's a lot of these different pieces, and it had a really different feel. Originally, it was kind of a lot slower, and the vocal line was a lot more kind of detached sounding. But when we did the rewrite, when we had the new set of lyrics, then we also revisited the chorus line, and it's also a function of me becoming more comfortable with singing. We chose to do the singing at a much higher register and more of a kind of belting style in the chorus, and I just connected with it way more than with the previous version of the lyrics, and now I feel great about that track, and especially after we got all the cello integrated. So that's definitely one where I can remember many different iterations, but it's been really great to see it finally kind of come into its own at the end.
Yeah, like the hard work, I think, was really worth it, and we ended up shooting the music video for that song. I don't know if you've seen it, but
yeah, so it's in the promo. It's like you have like the candles and the cello. Yeah, I saw it in the promo that they send you in the email. So yeah, pretty cool video. So where do you guys shoot that video?
We shot it in an upstairs room of the jam space that we jam in. We have a good relationship with the person who runs the jam space that we're working out of. I think it's probably one of the last affordable jam spaces in the entire city of Vancouver. So we've been very blessed. We've had that space since I first moved to Vancouver, and it's been really great to have that space. So
that space and a lot of black fabric.
Yes,
make that happen. The walls don't normally look like that. I think the room shrunk quite dramatically in order to make the ambiance happen. But
Yes.
Yeah. So how did you guys go by picking the name Tribunal? What does the name of the band mean to you guys?
We're both interested in ideas of justice and morality and grappling with kind of right and wrong and how your sense of that changes through time and experience. So having a name that that reflected some of those ideas, also the idea of judgment, which can mean a lot of different things, both on the inward facing side and on the confronting external external forces. So I think that it's we're interested in a name that that incorporated some of those themes, and I think it has a fairly classic sounding it's a very classic sounding impression. Also not too not too heavily themed or something.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I do think it's great to have a single snappy word.
Mhm.
There's not many of them left that haven't been used before in band names, and we are not the first band to call ourselves Tribunal, or even the second. But it really does, like, it is a single snappy word, and I think a lot of motifs and imagery naturally fall out of it, like the things like the scales and the logo. So I think it functions as a great jumping off point to start to create our own little world.
Mhm.
Yeah, and like you guys were saying before, this album is a lot about like looking inward. So basically, sometimes like being a tribunal, like maybe your worst critic is you judging yourself.
Certainly, you can certainly become your own tribunal.
Yeah, no, it's a great record, and I think people that enjoy bands like My Dying Pride, Candlemass, will definitely like to check it out. So, so in the terms of you doing the clean singing, like who inspired you as a singer?
um, earlier on, I was inspired by some more like psychedelic type doom bands or sludgy doom bands with female vocalists, like Jax Cloth was a big influence for me earlier on. She's got kind of deeper powerful voice, and the vocalist from Jess and the Ancient Ones also is a great voice, and that kind of style made me feel a bit more emboldened to kind of pursue doom vocals. I'd never been drawn personally to the more operatic style of vocals that a lot of that you hear fairly often when there's a mix of clean and harsh vocals.
Yeah,
So
I'm
I
glad
was
you don't like those that much. I think they're overused.
I
yeah.
mean, I'm a fan of it. Like, I love Draconian and that so much, but it really does feel like a bit more of a fresh vocal interplay that we do. So I like it.
I really love like a kind of just like a bolder vocal. Like I also, Smolder is another, great, newer kind of trad doom style band that has the kind of vocals and they just feel really powerful. But I think usually when I'm singing, I'm thinking about those bands, or I'm thinking about Messiah or Dio. So I think that like real classic, overly dramatic belters are certainly something that that I'm always trying to channel, or thinking about channeling at least.
Nice. So you guys are releasing the album on the 20th of January through 20 Bucks Ping. So what can we expect of Tribunal this year or in the next coming months?
Well, the first step once we finish this kind of album promo is we're doing a quick. Can I call it a mini tour?
A very mini tour.
3 days around British Columbia.
You can say some shows.
Yeah,
some shows
with Mayors of Thrace, who are a great band from Calgary, I think, and some really cool support from Liminal Shroud and Heron. And then from there, I think There's maybe going to be a few more scattered shows and maybe some fests, mostly around Western Canada for the rest of the year. We'll have to see kind of how the album is received and what kind of opportunities happen. I think we'd like to travel a bit further out, but it just depends like what we have for time and what we have for opportunity.
Yeah, it gets a lot easier to traverse the Rocky Mountains when it's not covered in snow and ice. So
Yeah, I think Canada's would be. I haven't been to where you guys are. I've been to Montreal and other areas, but it's big and there's a
yes.
lot of like mountains, so it's not as easy to travel from some place to another. Like, so yeah, I would imagine logistically it's not easy.
It's really tough because it's frustrating because you got Seattle and that whole center right under you that you'd love to go visit and hit for some shows, but the border is expensive and logistically challenging to get the visas required. And then the next big center east is like a 10 to 12 hour drive across some fairly risky mountains. So it's tough as a band starting out to start doing a bunch of shows.
But we're certainly hoping to. We love playing live, and so we're looking forward to some more live performances this next year. And we'll also we are doing some work on our next album, just working through the songs. So I think that that's something that we'll be working on more amongst ourselves.
Nice. So can we expect like a similar sound, or you guys were saying that you wanted to do something instead of looking inward, more outward for a new album?
I would say that's in terms of lyrical theme. In terms of sound, I think there'll be a bit of a refinement. I think there'll be a few little twists, but by and large, I expect if you liked the Weight of Remembrance, you'll like what we do next.
I think so. I guess the main difference with sound that you could expect is that we're writing more intentionally around cello and keys. Since we have the keyboardist playing with us now, which has been great, and which is not something that we expected to have when we were writing those songs. And a lot of the songs on the Weight of Remembrance were written without live cello in mind, and so cello was woven into it after the fact, and some things were adjusted. But this with our next record, since we're very confident we want to keep going with those other elements, we're incorporating those from the outset.
Nice. Yeah. Well, you're a new band, so I think you're allowed to experiment until you have a few albums, and then people will get mad if you change.
I hope at some point people get mad at us for changing, because then that means they really cared.
They get mad if you change, and then they will get mad if you don't change. You can't win.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I enjoyed the album. I think it's a great album. If you're sad, do not listen to it too much.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you got the main emotional point of it.
I hope it brought some of the dark, stormy skies of Vancouver to you in the Caribbean.
Oh, it rains here a lot, so yeah.
Well, yeah, that's true.
You brought some of the doom down here, so it's been great chatting with you guys, and hopefully I wish you a lot of success with the record. Are you gonna have it out digitally, or are there gonna be like physical copies, like vinyls and stuff that people can buy?
Yeah, all physical formats will be available on the 20th. I believe some of the LPs have even started shipping out. There's a few vinyl variants, CDs, and tapes. So yeah, pre-orders are all available through 20 Bucks Spin. So we're very excited about the physical release, certainly.
Nice. I'll put the link on the comments. But yeah, I think the record in vinyl will sound really good, especially the cello.
I hope so. I'm a big vinyl fan, big vinyl collector, so it's a real dream come true to be able to hold your own disc in your hands. So
yeah, very exciting.
Nice. So, any last words that you would like to say to people watching this video?
We really appreciate the interest. This is very exciting for us, especially as a new band. As we've said in some other settings, we've been working on this album for a very long time. So it feels great to have it finally coming out into the world. So we certainly appreciate any time anyone is open to spending with it.
Yeah, thank you for your time and your interest. It is absolutely appreciated. So
Nice. It's like your baby, and you're putting out into the world. So, yeah, I'm guessing it's kind of like exciting, but also like scary at the first time because it's a baby that people are going to judge.
Yeah, it's definitely it has been reassuring getting some very warm reviews coming in before the release. So yeah, I think we're getting warmed up for the release with some of that.
Nice. So, people, check out Tribunal. The album's coming out the 20th of this month, January. So, if you like doom metal, you will enjoy it. I'm gonna put the cover one last time so people can watch it. Here's the cover. Let me put it bigger. So if you like newer, like for people who complain that there's no newer like doom bands or classic sounding metal bands, there you have a band, Tribunal. Check them out. Stop bitching and complaining that there's no newer bands. So yeah, again, guys, thank you for your time, and yeah, I think the album's great, and hopefully people will dig it, and especially coming out, coming out at the beginning of the year. I think it's good for this time of year where people living in cold places. It's like a great soundtrack to put in, and just like get melancholy on it.
Yeah,
watch the rain pour down the windows.
yeah,
In my case, some sun, but I'll get depressed and
great.
melancholy listening to the album. So again, people, check out Tribunal on January 20th. So until next time, people, this is Hector, the Shield on the Couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and good night.